Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 376, Breakthrough to Monarch, Scene of the Immortal Palace. The fallen fluorescent demon, which had already evolved and developed into an extraordinary high level, was incomparably strong in the league as there weren't any other geniuses like Lanqing and Su Hao that were present. It might still be difficult for it to take on 5 sprites, but suppressing 2 or 3 enemy sprites alone wasn't difficult for the fallen fluorescent demon. With such a huge advantage, it was quite difficult for Whale Island to lose. Naturally, there was no suspense in the entire competition process. Whale Island fought steadily all the way until they won the final victory. Su Hao, this special guest, didn't have to work either. He just told the audience some characteristics of the fallen fluorescent demon. For example, he explained the halo that could cause the enemy to be in a trance, the energy with some characteristics that affected their emotions, and so on. There were many advantages after a sprite completed its fallen evolution. Su Hao was able to advertise his fallen evolution in a very natural way. No, how could the commentary that the audience wanted to hear be called an advertisement? He was also busy for the time being and didn't want to take on any requests for fallen evolution. He could only rely on such advertisement tactics to increase his income in order to feed his sprites. Sigh, he was still missing out on the money he could have made if he took the requests for fallen evolution. In the team competition, Whale Island University's team ended up winning the championship. However, Whale Island University only got one runner-up in the individual competition as Junior and XI wasn't interested. But none of that mattered. What was important was that Butterfly was about to break through. With the league coming to an end, Su Hao left early, bringing Butterfly to the cultivation area's seclusion chamber, the pressure room. The pressure room, as its name suggested, could bring pressure to sprites and promote the rapid circulation and compression of energy in their bodies. It was the first choice venue for sprites to break through major bottlenecks. Back then, Butterfly broke through to the elite level in the pressure room. At this moment, on Butterfly's forehead, a pink illusion attribute nomological mark and an emerald green wood attribute nomological mark flashed continuously. Wisps of aura spread out from its body. When the body, energy, and spirit were combined, and when the sprite had already obtained the approval of heaven and earth, breaking through to the Monarch realm would be a sure thing. Butterfly, who had already accumulated a lot, wouldn't have any difficulty in breaking through at all. The pressure room was naturally not needed. The pressure room created by modern technology was also not enough to assist high-level sprites in breaking through. Su Hao had only brought it here because he had estimated that when Butterfly broke through to Monarch rank, it needed to be supplied a vast amount of energy, and he also expected Butterfly to cause a huge commotion. As such, a closed cultivation venue that could withstand energy impacts appeared to be very necessary. I'd like a high-level pressure room. As for the rental time, just wait until I come out, Su Hao said to the instructor in charge of the pressure room. There were only 3 pressure rooms of the highest level of extraordinary level in the entire Whale Island University. Each one was as big as 2 basketball courts. The 4 walls were made of crystal barriers. When the pressure room started to recharge, countless elemental particles dissipated from the ground. Soon, the concentration reached a certain level. The dense wood and illusion elemental particles turned into emerald green and pink mist visible to the naked eye, drifting in the air. Gurgle. In the room, Butterfly revealed its original form. It was still short, but with a light wave of its butterfly wings, its whole body floated to the same height as Su Hao's vision. Its little face looked serious. The energy in its body circulated rapidly, and dense mist-like spiritual energy also swarmed in. Its entire small body was like a black hole. Even if the elemental particles gathered were fluctuating like a surging river, they were all still absorbed without any resistance. The Monarch rank breakthrough required time. At this moment, the heaven and earth elements were constantly absorbed and continuously surged out from underground of the pressure room. From the display screen outside the room, one would notice that the reserves of spiritual jades in the entire pressure room kept decreasing, but they were quickly replenished, maintaining above 80% the whole time. Su Hao had specially instructed the staff to constantly replenish their spiritual jades. They had to maintain their energy reserves at a safe line, which was above 80%. In any case, Su Hao didn't lack money. He wanted to provide Butterfly with the best environment to break through. At this moment, as a large amount of energy was absorbed and refined, Butterfly's aura couldn't be restrained anymore and was completely released, stirring the whole quiet room. The energy trembled more and more violently, and rumbling sounds rang out from time to time. There were even traces of pressure coming from the pressure room. 10 minutes passed. 20 minutes passed. 30 minutes passed. Butterfly's aura rose to its peak. Even though its body was covered by the energy vortex, one could still see the nomological marks flickering inside. Suddenly, a grand hall appeared, occupying most of the space in the center of the huge quiet room. Upon closer inspection, one could see the exquisite engravings on the hall. Every brick, tile, pillar, and eaves looked very real. In front of the hall's door, the first-level steps were drawn out of thin air and spread continuously, turning into a blue stone path that paved forward. On both sides of the blue stone path, green sprouts broke out of the ground and grew in the wind. In the blink of an eye, they turned into lush trees, blooming and bearing fruits. On the left was a date tree, and on the right was also a date tree. Su Hao seemed to have smelled the fragrance. He couldn't help but want to walk closer and reach out to pick the fruits, but just as he had this thought, the blue stone path spread in front of him directly, passed through his body. The illusion continued to spread outwards. The sprouts grew into lush trees, and the bright flowers turned into a sea of colorful flowers in the blink of an eye. There wasn't just one hall either. As the area of the phenomenon expanded, pavilions and jade buildings were spawned out as if they were painted by a paintbrush. The hall was grand, the fragrance of flowers filled the air, and mist filled the air. The scene. The scene was like a poem or a painting, like a dream. The pressure chamber's methods of sealing energy and pressure couldn't stop the illusion from spreading continuously. Fortunately, the league wasn't over yet. Most of the students and instructors were still at the arena, far away from the pressure room. But even so, the instructor in charge of managing the pressure room area, the staff here, and a few sprites and sprite trainers cultivating nearby were all alarmed. As they looked at the scene of the Immortal Palace that suddenly appeared and expanded continuously, their mouths and eyes started to widen. What's going on? Is there a sprite breaking through to Monarch rank? Is that a breakthrough phenomena? At the main venue of the league, some big bosses in the audience were stunned. Here, the phenomenon of the Immortal Palace naturally couldn't be seen with the naked eye, but Heavenly King big bosses were already considered superhumans, and were very sensitive to Monarch rank aura. From afar, they captured a trace of abnormality. With a few more methods, they could see the expanding Immortal Palace more than 10 kilometers away. 1 kilometer. 2 kilometers. 3 kilometers. The scope was so large that even the big bosses in the venue couldn't help but be suspicious. Perhaps it's not breaking through to the Monarch realm. Isn't this phenomenon a little exaggerated? The pressure room didn't have the sealing effect I expected it to. If I had known, I would have chosen an empty field. Su Hao felt a slight toothache. He looked around, as if he was in a fairyland-like hall. When he stretched out his hand, he seemed to be able to touch the rough bark. He seemed to be able to smell the fragrance of flowers. He seemed to be able to hear the pleasant sound of silk bamboo. But his ears. Ding! Your fairy butterfly successfully broke through to Monarch rank after some hard work. Ding! Chapter 377, Becoming a Heavenly King. Myriad Domain. There was a weak sound of prompting by Su Hao's ears. The jade buildings and plants and flowers that entered his eyes burst out with dazzling light. They were of all colors, rushing into the sky like rainbows. Even from dozens of kilometers away, one could see the colorful light in the distant horizon. Luckily, Such a dazzling light appeared and disappeared quickly. The brilliance that hung straight into the sky only lasted for 3 to 5 seconds before disappearing, making the few sprite trainers in the venue area who saw the colorful light rub their eyes and couldn't help but think that it was just their imagination. The gorgeous rainbows of the Immortal Palace had already disappeared. At the core of the breakthrough, the storm enveloping the pressure chamber didn't calm down. Instead, it became even more terrifying. At this moment, Butterfly had already advanced to Monarch rank, but its entire body was still hidden in the substance-like energy vortex. Storm howled. Butterfly's absorption of energy became even stronger after the breakthrough. On the display outside the pressure chamber, the energy reserves jumped from 80% to 70%, and then to 60%. It was being consumed at an extremely fast speed. The few staff members who were constantly adding spiritual jades into the furnace underground were already so busy that their feet never had the time to rest. Even if they threw baskets in, the speed of energy replenishment was far slower than consumption. Their foreheads were all sweating profusely. In the pressure chamber the size of 2 basketball courts, every inch of space was filled with storms. Not only was there spiritual energy that kept gushing out from the ground, but there was also natural energy absorbed from all directions from outside the pressure chamber. Even the seal couldn't stop it. Elemental particles surged. There wasn't just wood element and illusion element spiritual energy, but also energy from other elements. Butterfly was not a picky eater. Butterfly absorbed all of this energy like a whale swallowing the sea. On the interface, Butterfly's basic information was also jumping up at a speed visible to the naked eye. It took advantage of its breakthrough and absorbed a large amount of elemental energy. Soon, it completed the accumulation of 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months worth of energy that were usually only achieved after the breakthrough. Hoo. About half an hour later, the raging energy storm gradually calmed down. At this moment, the energy reserves of the pressure room were almost exhausted, leaving only a glaring red number 5%. In the pressure room, Butterfly's figure appeared again. Its appearance was no different from before. It still had the same butterfly wings and butterfly skirt and was the same size. But at a glance, one could discover that its aura had become even more illusory and ethereal, as if what existed there wasn't its real body, but just a projection. A mysterious field emanated from Butterfly's body, similar to the ability of the fallen fluorescent demon that could cause people to become dazed. After breaking through, Butterfly itself had now represented illusion. Even if one didn't look at it, just standing a few hundred meters away, any elite sprite trainer would be easily affected and wouldn't be able to last long. At this moment, Butterfly's eyes were closed as it was familiarizing itself with the explosive increase in strength after breaking through. Before long, its eyes opened, and the invisible field was completely restrained. Everything returned to normal, and only a crisp and pleasant voice spread far away. Gurgle, gurgle. Seeing that Butterfly had broken through with perfection, Suhao revealed a relieved smile. Just as he was thinking of opening the door of the pressure room, a mysterious power suddenly descended. It's the feedback from Butterfly after it broke through. Suhao could sense that his already very strong soul power had a substantial increase now, but the increase in soul power was only the beginning. Soon, the 6 special powers dream, fire, lightning, and so on appeared in the depths of his soul. As Butterfly gave him the opportunity to increase his powers suddenly merged together. Boom! It was as if something had exploded. Endless power surged out from the depths of his soul and gathered into his 4 limbs. Countless blurry images appeared in his mind. Somehow, Suhao seemed to have gained some comprehension. Every blurry image represented a choice. A heavenly king domain path. He had long learned these from Senior Wu when he first entered university. At this moment, he was very calm. As long as he chose a certain part of it as his domain, he would be able to become an Earth Heavenly King. The choice of the Heavenly King domain is definitely related to the first sprite trainer to break through to Monarch rank. But normally speaking, aren't there only 3 to 5 choices? Why are there dozens of available options now? Although there were more options, the situation ultimately didn't exceed Su Hao's expectations. He quickly found the domain path he wanted. 1 to 10,000, and then back to 1 again. This was the Myriad domain. Boom! He could finally see through the fog. He had understood the truth. He had grasped the rules. Like breathing instinct, Su Hao instantly had a direct understanding of the domain he controlled. Senior Wu's 10,000 wood domain can promote plant growth and bring with it infinite vitality. The whole domain can also be used on any sprite with wood element attributes. It was simple and direct, but it wasn't weak either. And my Myriad domain? In essence, it covers countless changes. This is a good domain. Firstly, Butterfly itself is already proficient in transformation. Apart from illusion and wood element, it also dabbled in thunder, fire, and water element changes. Secondly, I am now able to unlock countless improved unique skills, profound meanings, secret manuals, cultivation plans, and more. The basic usage of the Myriad domain is to promote Sprites' learning of unique skills and secret manuals. It's equivalent to starting a comprehension sheet. In addition, unlike attribute domains, the Myriad domain mainly increases the power and control of unique skills secret manuals. The more exquisite the unique skill secret manual, the greater the increase in power. However, there are also prerequisites for Sprites that can be affected. They need to master some exquisite unique skills of different types. It was nothing like attribute domains, which were simple and crude. Even a sprite that had just been born could be directly enveloped by the power of its corresponding attribute domain. 10 days to reach entry level. 50 days to reach elite level. 200 days to reach extraordinary level. The attribute domain was very strong when used to nurture newbie sprites. However, non-attribute domains also have their own benefits. With such domains, there was no need to adhere to a certain type of attribute. My current Myriad power is especially. Su Hao thought for a moment and confirmed that his Heavenly King domain could be applied to any sprite. So, I'm indeed an expert in technology. Gurgle. He turned around. At this moment, Butterfly's body had already turned incorporeal, and it had already passed through the wall of the pressure room by itself. Well, it was mainly because Su Hao was too busy comprehending the power of the universe and had forgotten to open the door. When Su Hao turned back, the instructor in charge of the pressure room area was already walking towards him. From afar, Su Hao saw what the instructor was holding in his hand. It was a long bill. It was the bills calculated after quantifying the impact, destruction, and spiritual jades caused by Butterfly's breakthrough. As soon as it saw the bill, Butterfly turned into the size of a palm with a pop and flew to his head to bury its head. Su Hao. Did Su Hao look like a sprite trainer who would take money from his sprite's personal savings? Hey? At most, he would only deduct a small portion from Butterfly's future earnings. Butterfly breaking through to Monarch rank caused a huge commotion. Apart from the instructors in charge, other instructors also rushed over from nearby. At this moment, Nay! A loud and clear neigh came from above. Looking up at the sky, he discovered that it was a sprite trainer riding a cloud water dragon horse, rushing over at an extremely fast speed. Ripples appeared on the horse's hooves as it took giant steps forward that spanned 200 to 300 meters. It was a Monarch rank cloud water dragon horse. There was a horn on its head and some interweaving stripes on its body. It roared. The person who came was Whale Island University's professor, Heavenly King of the Vast Ocean, Wei Ming Yuan. Seeing that there was no disaster here, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. He asked again, what happened? As he spoke, he looked at Su Hao. To be precise, he looked at Butterfly above Su Hao's head. With the sharp senses of a Heavenly King, he quickly discovered that the Monarch's pressure on Butterfly's body was still unable to be completely restrained. It couldn't help but be surprised. So that sprite is the one who broke through to Monarch rank. Yes, my butterfly fairy just broke through. The commotion might have been a little big, Su Hao said with a sigh. After staying in the pseudo-monarch for a few months, it finally broke through. It's not easy, not easy. Su Hao thought about how Sun Sun had advanced to Heavenly King a few months ago. In comparison, Su Hao still had a lot of room for improvement. A certain instructor. Heavenly King of the vast ocean. You call a few months of preparation for a breakthrough a long time? Heavenly King of the vast ocean recalled that he had once experienced countless hardships and dangers before finally nurturing his first sprite to monarch rank. Then, he looked at Su Hao. The other instructors were even more shocked. They felt like they had lived for 30 to 40 years for nothing. After thinking about it carefully, they realized that Su Hao, someone who was considered the pride of Whale Island, had only been a sprite trainer for 3 years after contracting a sprite. He took 3 years to become a Heavenly King. Thinking about it this way, spending a few months preparing to break through to monarch rank was indeed a long time. Like hell it was. Heavenly King Vast Ocean wanted to scream. But he hadn't forgotten his duty. As he inquired about the details of the matter, he looked around. Apart from the fact that the energy reserves in the super pressure room in front of him were a little low, there weren't any other problems. Fortunately, the scene of the Immortal Palace just now was just an illusion. Just as he thought so, Heavenly King Vast Ocean realized that something was wrong. Not far away, on some flower beds outside the room, countless flowers had unknowingly bloomed. In the cracks between the stone slabs, weeds grew tenaciously, already half a meter tall. These couldn't possibly have originally existed. Whale Island University had people tending to these flowers and plants every day. Consider it my contribution to the school's plants. I've always been so protective of nature. Su Hao waved his hand. The corners of Heavenly King Vast Ocean's mouth twitched. When he recalled Su Hao saying just broke through just now, veins popped up on his forehead. He had the urge to hit him. Why don't I beat him up before he becomes a Heavenly King? Heavenly King Vast Ocean was tempted, but on second thought, he brushed it off as it wasn't appropriate. Moreover, even if he were to beat Su Hao up now, given Su Hao's potential, the Heavenly King realized that he might be beaten back twice as hard in a short time. It's too much of a loss, too much of a loss. He quickly dismissed the idea. On the other hand, Su Hao was currently paying a huge sum of money. It was equivalent to the amount of money he could accumulate as an instructor for 2 to 3 months. Then, he left with Butterfly. He wanted to try using Butterfly's breakthrough ability in his Myriad domain. At the university campus, in the training area, Su Hao opened a high-level training hall alone and called for Dazed Crow, Big Fat Bear, and other sprites. Nay. As soon as the dumb unicorn appeared, it kept running around him, feeling that something was different about the sprite trainer boss. It couldn't help but move closer and rub its head. Unfortunately, its head was a little big, and was even covered in scales and horns. Big Fat Bear and Fufu also sensed the change in Butterfly's body. They felt that it became even more profound. They looked at Butterfly in awe and admiration. Only the Dazed Crow stared at its saber for a while before realizing. Squawk! 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 Hearing that it could increase its strength, fighting ability, and other things, Crow immediately became excited. Before the other sprites could say or do anything, it immediately spread its wings and flew out, landing in the middle of the empty training hall. In an instant, a gilded flame coat covered its body. It was entering the flaming feather form. Golden flame feather form. Squawk! It immediately gathered its strength and swung out a dazzling golden blade light, slashing at the testing stone tablet standing tall in the distance. Boom! The gilded flames exploded and were absorbed by the stone tablet. Instantly, the testing stone tablet lit up with a burst of light, and its position kept rising. This was a higher level testing equipment than a power testing machine. It wasn't as precise as a testing machine, but it could withstand the power of extraordinary level or even monarch level unique skills. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The light rose and finally covered the 5th level of the stone tablet. First level meant entry level. Second level meant elite. Levels 3 to 5 meant extraordinary. The dazed crow's current results meant that its slashes were at the peak of extraordinary level. Of course, it hadn't used its full strength yet. Continue. Su Hao said. At the same time, he controlled it with his mind, enveloping the dazed crow with his myriad domain in an unfamiliar manner. In an instant, the dazed crow's aura only increased slightly, mainly because the myriad domain didn't increase much strength. But it swung its blade again, and the gilded blade light expanded in the wind, becoming more than 10 meters long. It was dazzling and resplendent, and with a power that was countless times stronger than before, it directly hit the testing stone tablet. Boom! A wave of resplendent light exploded. Even though a large amount of energy was absorbed, there were still waves that spread out, stirring up strong winds. At the same time, the light of the stone tablet rose rapidly and finally stopped at the intersection of the 5th and 6th levels. The power of a half-step monarch rank. It's already stronger than the full-strength attack of ordinary pseudo-monarch sprites. If the dazed crow unleashes its full power and is amplified by my domain, it will definitely be able to deal a blow comparable to a monarch sprite. Such an increase was already very strong. If the crow were to face the monarch sand earthworm dragon again, with Su Hao's myriad domain, the dazed crow could directly break through the earthworm's defense and injure it. Besides, the myriad domain doesn't just enhance power, but also. Dazed crow, who had just experienced the benefits of cheating, was already unable to contain its excitement. Without waiting for Su Hao to give the order, it continuously waved its dazzling golden saber light and slashed at the testing stone tablet. It struck out more than 10 times in a row. It paused for a moment, gathered strength again, and drew its saber. The golden light slashed out and instantly passed through layers of space, but it didn't slash at the testing stone tablet. Instead, it shot straight into the sky. It cut through the clouds and emitted dazzling sunlight. The big fat bear scratched its head, not understanding. Su Hao looked up at the sky and waited quietly. At the same time, Heavenly King Wu had just heard that his little junior brother had advanced to Heavenly King. After yelling out 3 consecutive curses, he drove the trading puppet and found the training hall. I don't know what little junior's Heavenly King domain is, but the domain that has just advanced to Heavenly King is usually relatively weak. It needs constant training and feedback to increase its power before it can show the true power of a Heavenly King domain. Heavenly King Wu thought. Just as he was about to let trading puppet land, he saw a beam of golden light rush out of the training hall and slash through the clouds. He nodded slightly when he saw it. Its power is pretty good, but why did it slash at the clouds? Isn't there a testing stone tablet in the training hall? Just as the word hall was spoken, the golden blade light that had already slashed through the sky and disappeared without a trace, returned to his vision once again. It circled in the air with still terrifying energy and accurately hit the test stone tablet standing on the ground. Boom! Smoke and dust filled the air. The dazed crow slashed out dozens of golden lights like how a child would after having discovered a new toy. All of the slashes flew to the end of the horizon and circled back. The explosive destructive energy didn't affect its control of the saber light at all. In fact, it was becoming more and more familiar with it. Heavenly King Wu just stared blankly at the 2 dragons drawn in the air by the countless golden lights. He was silent for a long time. Chapter 378, 4 Levels of Monarch. Whoosh whoosh. When the trading puppet landed, Heavenly King Wu didn't even bother to tidy up his somewhat messy hair. He just widened his eyes and observed the sprite standing in the center of the arena. By now, another sprite had replaced the sprite that was originally standing there. The flaming spirit crow had been replaced by the eternal night glory concubine, dressed in a black and white dress as it raised up an arm. In the blink of an eye, the sky darkened, and countless dim stars spread out. On every star, there was a dazzling light that flashed. Heavenly King Wu had seen this move before, but the power exuded by the star is a little too strong, no. With the help of trading puppets' perception, Heavenly King Wu accurately understood the power of the flickering star, especially since Heavenly King Wu knew very well that the most terrifying damage of the star explosion came from the explosion of light and darkness. According to his calculation, this attack is enough to threaten even a Monarch sprite. Was it using a secret manual that could increase its power? Was the Flaming Spirit Crow and the Eternal Night Glory Concubine using the same secret manual? He thought about it and realized that the shining stars weren't blasting towards the testing stone tablet like he expected them to. Instead, one by one, the stars flew out and collided in mid-air, but they didn't explode. Instead, they looked like countless huge rocks that were stacked together. Dazzling white light pierced through the darkness, and the energy accumulated in the huge rocks reached a terrifying level. Heavenly King Wu discovered that the entire space was shaking faintly. I feel like I might explode at any moment. Holy shit! Trading Puppet's figure appeared behind him. Its psychic shield was like a huge bowl that was turned upside down, protecting Heavenly King Wu within. The next moment, boom! The unstable energy of the huge rock pile completely exploded. A terrifying storm wreaked havoc in the entire training field. Black and white energy flowed past with a rumbling sound, like a torrential river swallowing everything. Su Hao also sensed that something was wrong, and he quickly squatted down and entered Ayan's shadow. After hiding for more than 10 seconds, he finally came out. At this point, the raging storm had already gradually calmed down. The light of the barrier around the training hall faded, but a huge pit appeared in the hard arena in the center of the hall. This was even when the huge rock pile exploded when it was still 10 meters away from the ground. Su Hao took another look. Before the big fat bear could put on its armor, it activated Thunder God Overlord body in an instant. However, the bluish-purple Thunder Bear's shell had already been blasted through, and the big fat bear turned into a charred black bear. Seeing Su Hao return, the bear turned its head and looked over, dazed and sobbing. It was as if it was saying, "Why didn't you take me with you?" Dumb Unicorn and Crow were doing slightly better than the big fat bear. When they sensed the impending danger, they directly hid behind the bear. The point of having teammates was to use them to block bullets, especially since after the big fat bear used Thunder God Overlord body, the bear's grip was very stable and wouldn't be washed away by the violent energy flow. The entire Thunder Bear's shell was also big enough to block 90% of the aftershock. The most miserable sprite at the moment was the Eternal Night Glory Concubine. Dressed in a black dress, its hair was messy, and its aura was a little dispirited. It was squatting in a corner of the venue with an innocent look. But amidst the innocent look, there was also a hint of ecstasy triggered by witnessing the explosive art. It had the urge to do it again. Go back! Su Hao yelled out helplessly. The Eternal Night Glory Concubine's pitch-black Lorita dress changed inch by inch, turning into a pure white color. Bright white light emerged from its entire body and enveloped its entire body. Some damaged areas were being repaired at an extremely fast speed. Its dispirited aura also gradually recovered. For the time being, Su Hao wanted to stop his experimentation with the Myriad domain. After going through the enhanced Dazed Crow's 100 Golden Light Slashes and the Eternal Night Glory Concubine's brand new star explosion, Su Hao felt that more than half of his domain power had been consumed. Domain power was somewhat similar to soul power in the way that once it dried up, recovery would be quite troublesome. As expected, as a newly advanced Heavenly King, my domain power is still too weak. Su Hao sighed. You call this weak? Heavenly King Wu revealed a puzzled look. He really wanted to give his little junior a beating, but after thinking about it, he decided that it was better not to. Your domain is a functional type, right? How compatible are your sprites with your domain? They're all fairly compatible. Senior Wu. All right. He didn't ask any more. After all, the Heavenly King domain was considered by some to be a private matter. Besides, this junior had only just advanced, so he still needed more time to familiarize himself with it. Although this junior's increase in strength and the durability of the domain were already comparable to some Heavenly King sprite trainers who had advanced for several years. Senior Wu turned to look at Butterfly. In his eyes, Butterfly looked similar to before, and had an especially inconspicuous appearance under its shrunken form, as if it was deliberately trying to act weak to deceive everyone. Its Monarch rank's powerful pressure had already been retracted, and one needed to exert a lot of effort in order to discover the great terror which was hidden in its tiny body. A Monarch rank Butterfly Fairy. I always knew you would eventually become a Heavenly King, but I didn't expect you to advance to a Heavenly King so soon. Heavenly King Wu sighed. He remembered that when this little junior had just entered the school. Back then, he only felt that he was a good seedling with the bearing of a Heavenly King, and thought of his advancement to the Heavenly King as nothing more than a possibility. By the time this little junior joined the school team as a first-year student and even performed excellently in the league, he knew that Su Hao would definitely become a Heavenly King. But he didn't think that it would happen until a year or two after graduation. However, although as a second-year Heavenly King, Su Hao can't be said to be the youngest person to become a Heavenly King in the history of the Union, it's very likely that Su Hao holds the record for being the person who had advanced to Heavenly King level in the shortest time possible after contracting a sprite. Although he thought very highly of Su Hao, he didn't reveal any of those sentiments when he spoke. Still, the Union produces many geniuses every year, and so does our enemy, the alien tribes, so don't be arrogant. Besides, sprites still have a long way to go after breaking through to Monarch rank. Continue to work hard. You're right, I spent so many years just to advance to Heavenly King. I'm still too weak. Heavenly King Wu. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, he heard his little junior asking about information regarding Heavenly Kings and Monarch sprites again. He swallowed the words he was about to say and reorganized his thoughts. To us sprite trainers, Heavenly King and Monarch ranks are almost like ceilings, but you have to know that there is also a huge gap between the different ceilings. Overall, our union has divided Monarch sprites into 4 levels: Ordinary Monarch, High-Class Monarch, Domain Monarch, and Nomological Monarch. He paused before continuing to say, a high-class monarch refers to a sprite that has cultivated for a long period of time after breaking through, such as 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. This level also includes monarch sprites that already have deep foundations and powerful strength. Even a sprite that has developed to the limit of monarch rank is still considered as a high-class monarch. Apart from that, those with ordinary strength and insufficient accumulation are only considered to be ordinary monarchs. For example, the sand earthworm dragon was undoubtedly an ordinary monarch, and it was relatively weak for its level. After all, the sand earthworm dragon's attacking methods from the beginning to the end were very simple, and its threat level was only average. Su Hao pondered. Senior Wu continued, after that, we have the domain monarch, which means that a sprite has its own domain. It's different from our Heavenly King domain. The sprite domain is a true kind of power. A sprite in its own domain is known as a god sprite. Yes, I'm talking about a complete domain. Many Heavenly Kings have their own methods of creating incomplete and temporary domains at some cost. Lastly, we have the nomological monarchs. You should know that the prerequisite for a sprite to break through to the monarch rank is to have a nomological mark, which is to obtain the nomological recognition. But such recognition is very rare. To give you an idea, if a full nomological recognition is 100%, then the nomological mark may only be a trace, less than 0.1%. And the nomological monarchs are sprites that have received full nomological recognition. It's equivalent to being a spokesperson for nomology, or one who possesses the right to represent the nomology for a certain attribute. This is also the prerequisite for a sprite to break through to the crown. Well, it's one of the many prerequisites. After Senior Wu finished his explanation, Su Hao finally had a deeper understanding of Monarch rank. The division of Heavenly King levels was naturally related to Sprites. At this thought, he couldn't help but ask, "Then Senior, what level are you at?" Senior Wu brushed his thick, glossy black hair. "Since you're asking so curiously, I'll let you know that your senior brother, who has only advanced to Heavenly King for more than 10 years, is now at the 3rd level. I'm a domain level Heavenly King. You're almost a crown level." Su Hao yelled out. Senior Wu's mouth twitched. "Aren't you forgetting about the 4th level?" Chapter 379, Returning to Red Rock Town. After Butterfly broke through to Monarch rank and Su Hao advanced to the Heavenly King, the High School League also ended smoothly. Very soon, Su Hao was able to live a simple and happy life again. But before living his simple life, he still had one thing that needed to be completed. He needed to complete the advancement ritual of the Dazed Crow, which had been dragged on and on. Squawk! So you finally remember. Dazed Crow, who was feeling pitiful in the corner but was now no longer frustrated, flapped its wings and flew forward. Unfortunately, it was pushed away mercilessly by Su Hao once again. Be patient, be patient. It will take another 1 to 2 days for the materials to be delivered. During this period of time, continue to familiarize yourself with the power of the Myriad domain. After a few days of familiarization, Su Hao was now able to follow the internet connection, follow the contract connection and remotely release the Myriad domain. After learning how to do this, he sent the Dazed Crow to find a training field not too far away to practice by itself. Then, he looked at Butterfly on the sofa. After breaking through, Butterfly now looked even more dispirited. It laid on the sofa and was playing on a gaming console. It was using its psychic power to act as its fingers while it played. Despite looking idle and useless, Su Hao still discovered on the interface that Butterfly was improving every day. There had been a significant improvement. Therefore, Su Hao left Butterfly alone. At this moment, buzz! Buzz! The wristband vibrated. Usually, daily messages came from cell phones, and the contents that were sent to the wristband were mostly important. For example, it might contain information about a mission. Didn't I just complete a mission last month? Why do I have to do another mission? Su Hao, who was a slacker, naturally wanted to reject it. After clicking into it, he realized that it wasn't a mission. Instead, it was something that he had long forgotten. It was a notification for the recruitment of members of the inspector team. I'm already a Heavenly King, and the applicants have only just completed the preliminary round. That's right. Before the team members themselves were recruited, they still had to undergo a round of screening by the Union. They needed to meet the requirements of strength, identity, and other conditions, all to remove 90% of the Sprite trainers who weren't qualified and were taking advantage of the situation. But that still leaves. There are actually 63 applicants to choose from. A total of 63 master-level Sprite trainers who are worthy of being called talents. However, there are also differences in the popularity of inspectors. The high number of applicants is probably because I'm so young, handsome, and rich, right? Of course, the Sprite trainers on the list were mainly from the Dragon Nation, but there were also people from other small countries who wrote on their application that they knew the Dragon Nation language. Since they have gone through the Union's examination, these resumes must all have authenticity. They've also made it easier for me to browse through them. With the Union's approval, these people's resumes all have authenticity. It's much easier for me to understand them. There was the former college entrance examination champion. There was a ferocious man who single-handedly destroyed the nest of small terrorist organizations. There were also high-level Sprite cultivators who were good at making jade powder set meals. There were also veterans with rich battle results who had worked in many departments. Su Hao could have his pick. Out of all these talents, he felt pretty good indeed. According to the suggestion given by the Union, I need someone in charge of collecting intelligence in a team, someone in charge of communicating, and a sprite cultivator who can handle some sprite abnormalities. Well, this person won't do. Su Hao first browsed for intelligence talents. What greeted his eyes was a thin man with the label Union Recommendation. Lin Chi was good at computer technology. At first glance, he looked ordinary, but this Lin Chi has a special telekinesis sprite digital flying dragon. It can materialize data and even transform its own body into data. Combined with his computer skills, they would be quite a strong team. When I'm dealing with the Dark Society's strongholds in the future, he can help me investigate the entire base in a very short time. Such a talent could play a very big role in modern society. In the future, Su Hao would have many missions related to the Dark Society and the terrorist organization. Besides, with a special sprite-like digital flying dragon, even in the wilderness of the New World, he would still be able to play some role. This was the reason why the Union recommended top-level special talents. Among the others that Su Hao was more optimistic about, there was also an expert who was good at collecting intelligence and interrogation, a team doctor who was good at healing and logistics management. Apart from that, everyone's resume is pretty outstanding, so at this time, an actual assessment is needed. He used common methods to send out a second-round notice to the 10 people he picked. He had to choose 5 people from the 10 people as members of his team. But the second round can't delay my schedule either, Su Hao checked Crow's advancement location. In that case, let the sprite trainers who are participating in the second round gather at the east gate of Red Rock Town. As for the time, let's make it 2 days from now. The ritual venue Su Hao reserved for the Dazed Crow was in the New World's Red Rock Town area. The Dazed Crow had once completed the transformation from a little fire crow to a flaming cloud crow in this area. Of course, the location of the advancement ritual at this moment was not arranged to be in the volcanic cluster, but in a rather dangerous area near Red Rock Town. That was the best location he picked out after repeatedly comparing several high-level fire element areas. All kinds of advanced materials required for this ritual have also been bought. I've made sure to only purchase materials with the highest quality. With the best location and assistance, it should be able to evolve perfectly, allowing the Dazed Crow's strength to increase very visibly after evolution. It should also directly raise its strength ceiling by a bit. The entrance of Red Rock Town was located in Demon City. On the opposite side was a scorching volcanic environment. Rolling heat waves were everywhere, and many fire element sprites could be found in the wild. The base here was named after the town, so its scale naturally couldn't compare to XX City. But because many fire element materials were easier to be collected here, and the danger here was also relatively low, the town still attracted many sprite trainers. Sprite trainers often entered and left the Hall of Exploration here. At first glance, there seems to be quite a lot of sprite trainers in Red Rock Town, but in fact, many of them are ordinary elite level. For example, every member of our Red Maple Leaf is at least elite high level, and we even have an exploration team under the protection of a master level captain. Among all the exploration teams that's stationed in Red Rock Town, we can definitely rank in the top 5. An old member of an exploration group was introducing the various achievements of the Red Maple Leaf to the new member in a very proud tone. "Kid, you graduated from a major university, and the captain thinks highly of you. You have to work hard. Who knows, you might become a vice commander someday." As the wily member spoke, he suddenly realized that the newbie beside him had paused. The newbie's gaze carried a few traces of surprise as he looked ahead at the east gate of Red Rock Town. The wily old fox also looked in the same direction. The old member saw several sprite trainers standing by the east gate. From their looks, they should be sprite trainers from a team. They seem to be waiting for someone, but there's nothing strange about it. Before he could finish saying the word "it," the wily old fox finally realized what was wrong. At the east gate, there was 1, 2, 3, there was a team of 10 sprite trainers, with 1 to 3 extraordinary looking sprites beside each of them. The old fox saw that when a passerby walked past the east gate, the passerby would walk around the 10 people with a look of reverence on his face. The passerby's sprites were even trembling a little, and they couldn't help but move cautiously, afraid of disturbing the sprites waiting at the east gate. Are they all extraordinary sprites? There are at least a few of them, maybe all of them are master-level sprite trainers. Could such a luxurious lineup all belong to the same team? Then who exactly are they waiting for? The old fox couldn't believe it. His eyes widened. Many sprite trainers near the east gate also looked over repeatedly with shock in their eyes. At this moment, they saw the big bosses waiting at the east gate suddenly look up somewhere, their faces filled with anticipation, curiosity, and respect. In the sky, clouds floated by. On the clouds, a young man with fluttering clothes walked down the stairs made of white clouds step by step. He had an unparalleled aura. Chapter 380, Lava Fire Cave Evolution Field. If the young man had not dramatically walked down from the clouds, then he wouldn't have appeared to be so imposing. Aside from the clouds, the young man's iron tower-like body was also surrounded by a substantial baneful aura, a sharp and fierce aura that could make people shiver with just a glare. But none of that could rival his best characteristic. There was only one characteristic that mattered: his handsome looks. But a sharp-eyed passerby sprite trainer noticed that the extraordinary sprites that were lazily waiting at the east gate have all suddenly jolted. Their eyes became sharp, and a whirlwind appeared in their terrifying aura. The muscles on their limbs tightened, and it seemed that they had already entered battle mode. The reason why these sprites looked like they were facing a great enemy was naturally because of the terrifying pressure exuded by Su Hao's shadow. A pseudo-monarch was only half a step away from a real monarch-level sprite, and it even had the majestic aura of a king. Even if only a trace of this aura leaked out, it would be enough to make the extraordinary sprites present tense up suddenly and enter a battle-ready state. This pressure came and went quickly. Under the comfort of their respective sprite trainers, the sprites quickly dispelled the nervousness in their hearts, but the 10 sprite trainers who came for the interview were still secretly shocked. No matter how many legends they have heard of the young man, it still felt different to meet him in person. Only after seeing him did they truly understand how powerful this sprite trainer was. Despite being younger than all of them, he was just so powerful that one couldn't help but revere him. "Let's go," Su Hao said. "In the next 3 days, I will be watching all of you closely. Only half of you will be allowed to remain. Of course, if you have any questions you want to ask me, you can also." They didn't really have any questions. They just kept thinking about how they could use these 3 days to showcase themselves and fight for the spot of a member of the team. However, 3 of them couldn't help but look surprised when they heard this. These 3 knew something the others didn't. They knew that the person in front of them was not only a powerful intern inspector, but also a top-notch genius who won the Union Supernova Cup. They also knew that he was the author of the Fallen Evolution research paper from a while ago, a brilliant sprite cultivator. The consultation fee for such a sprite cultivator was astronomical. Besides, there was no way to find this consultation normally. Given that they would be able to receive free consultation from him, even if they couldn't be selected to join the team, they would still be able to profit from this experience. However, they quickly dismissed their thoughts. It was precisely because of the inspector's generosity that they had to do their best to enter this team and fight for a bright future. Among the 3 sprite trainers who knew the inside story, there was a man wearing glasses who hadn't spoken much. Compared to the others, he knew the most about Su Hao. Not only did he know that Su Hao was responsible for the Fallen Evolution, but he also knew that Su Hao was not just a sprite cultivator who's good at sprite evolution. In the information he found, he knew that this inspector was also proficient in the design of cultivation plans. He was aware that every plan this inspector had designed always perfectly conformed to its sprites, allowing their development speed to increase by several times. Not just several times faster than regular plans, but several times faster than the plans designed by well-known sprite cultivators. The man in glasses had gathered all of this information from the internet. He had already verified all of the information, which was why he was especially surprised. Ordinary people were always shocked by his evolution theory or surprised by the fact he won the first place in the Supernova Cup at the age of 20, but they all neglected how important his perfect cultivation plans were. The man in glasses thought to himself, "It's just that my strength is too weak. I'm practically the worst or second worst among everyone. I wonder if I would be able to impress the inspector." Along the way, Su Hao was also secretly observing everyone. He was paying attention to their performance and their sprites. He was especially interested in the special telekinesis sprite Digital Flying Dragon. It was his first time seeing one. At first glance, the Digital Flying Dragon looked like an ordinary Western dragon. It was relatively large in size, and its wingspan was 4 to 5 meters long. But after Su Hao observed carefully with the same frequency connected to butterfly, Su Hao discovered that the entire body of the Digital Flying Dragon was interweaved by countless pieces of code. Just like the elemental sprite Tide Calling Spring Sprite, its body was just a digital body. Not only could it break down and regroup, but it could also deal out deadly damage. The only downside is that this Digital Flying Dragon was cultivated a little badly. Otherwise, it wouldn't have had its limit placed at the extraordinary mid-level. Su Hao guessed that it might be because rare sprites lacked accessible data and analysis cases, and even high-level sprite cultivators found it difficult to come up with suitable cultivation plans. In the area that surrounded the Red Rock town, all that one could see was red-brown earth. The people here couldn't see any plants, and the sun was always blazing. But active volcanoes that could erupt at any moment weren't everywhere either. There weren't any near the Red Rock town. Last time, the active volcano range Su Hao went to was located dozens of kilometers to the west. Fire elements were active there, and it was one of the best fire element evolution venues in Dragon Nation. Now, the place he was going to was located on the east side of Red Rock Town, also dozens of kilometers away. The fire elements contained in this area were even more terrifying, and it also contained a lot of high-level materials. This area was called Lava Fire Cave. It wasn't far from Red Rock Town, but very few sprite trainers would go there to explore. There was only one reason: it was too dangerous. I did some research. The ground of the entire Lava Fire Cave is very unstable. Flaming pillars can emerge at any time, but there are still patterns that we could follow. We can judge from the traces left on the ground where to tell where it's safer to walk and where it's more likely for the flame pillars to erupt. One of the sprite trainers applicants spoke first, wanting to leave a good impression. Su Hao had not told them where their destination was before they set off, but it seemed that the short sprite trainer who had just spoken had investigated all of the surrounding environment and even looked up information on some key areas beforehand. Now, it was obvious that his hard work had paid off. The others also spoke one after another. Some were good at scouting and analyzing. They all said things that made sense. Some of them had especially strong sprites that were able to defeat the extraordinary level sprites that came from the lava in just a few moves. They all did their best to showcase their unique abilities. Su Hao just smiled the entire way, but he really wanted to tell them. He wanted to tell them that there was really no deeper meaning in choosing this place. He had chosen this place purely because it was where the Dazed Crow's ritual was to be held and he wanted to save time. It was also Su Hao's first time here. But he acted like he was very familiar with the place. Butterfly's perception had already swept across the lava fire cave long ago, and then transmitted the information into his mind through an illusion projection. He also had the information provided from the interface map. In fact, he could barely keep himself from revealing where there was the pillar of flame, and where there were the hidden wild extraordinary sprites. He knew about everything. Seeing as they're doing their best, I'll let them be. He pondered. After circling around the fire cave, finally, waves of heat rolled in front of them, almost turning into flames as they rushed towards them. But Su Hao's eyes lit up. He had found the most suitable evolution venue. At the same time, half a day after Su Hao set off, the big boss of the Dark Society who received the news was excited. He finally went to the New World. He's in the area of Red Rock Town. This is our chance. Quickly, send our people over. Be careful, there are many master-level sprite trainers around the target. You're bringing so many bodyguards with you? That's pretty cautious of you, but I've prepared even more people. I'll send 3 officers and 12 master-level. If it weren't for the fact that there are only so many master-level subordinates with legal identities in the Union, and there are no other entrances in the Red Rock Town area, I would have sent even more people over. It was clear that this Dark Society Heavenly King was someone who did things steadily. He paused for a moment and continued, but don't worry, I also hired a top-notch professional assassin from the Hunter platform. I'll definitely make sure the target doesn't return alive. The Heavenly King in the darkness smiled and didn't say anything else. But his laughter contained absolute confidence.